Welcome to KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice, telling the stories of Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them. KC Cares is proudly sponsored by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation. I'm Ruth Bombiggis, and I am joined by Damon Daniel, who has the distinct pleasure of being the president of the AdHoc Group Against Crime here in Kansas City. Want to welcome you to KC Cares. I have to color our conversation a little bit because for many years I've had the pleasure of knowing Alvin Brooks. And I know this organization is rooted in all things Alvin. But we want to talk about where you are today. Maybe you can fill us a little bit in on the history of the organization and kind of where you are today.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on your show. It's a great pleasure to be here. For those who are unfamiliar with the AdHoc Group Against Crime, we were founded, as you mentioned, by Mr. Alvin Brooks, who is a retired police detective, former mayor pro tem and city council person, as well as retired from the Police Board of Commission as well. He's still very active, and actually he's my mentor and consultant as well. But we've been around since 1977, and AdHoc was founded really because of a response to the homicides of 9 African-American women who were considered women of the evening, or prostitutes for lack of a better word. And this AdHoc group of concerned citizens convened by Mr. Brooks really came together to hold law enforcement accountable and to raise awareness for those unsolved homicides. And back then, sort of the attitude about women who live that lifestyle is that was the consequences of it, and that was unacceptable for the Black community. And so they raised awareness. They partnered with Carter Broadcast Group. They did telethons and things like that to raise money. And this was really kind of before Tip Hotline came about. And so they were able to raise rewards and get many of those homicides solved. And with the influx of drugs into the community, AdHoc stayed around and really became sort of this premier and very radical crime fighting agency. In fact, it was so radical that it partnered with local funeral homes where they would do these marches on drug houses. They would show up and with a casket in front of the house and a bullhorn and the police on the periphery, and basically saying, hey, we know what you're doing, shut it down, or else we'll be back. And they were very successful. I think back then they shut down over 200 drug houses. In fact, if you can see behind me,
wow,
there's a picture of USA Today, and that's the auxiliary group that was called Black Men Together. And they were very successful of shutting down drug houses. Fast forward a bit into the early 2000s, between 2000 and 2007, Mr. Brooks, of course, had retired from, well, the first time from AdHoc, and ran for city council and became city councilman. And the organization itself had merged with Project Neighborhood, and it became what was known then as Move Up. And it was Move Up between 2000 and about 2007. And to sort of summarize that, it really kind of got away from its original mission of serving those who are impacted by crime and violence, and became more of a sort of a community development corporation, though it still did deal with some violence under Move Up. But of course, Move Up closed its doors. Mr. Brooks never stopped getting those phone calls. And so he started AdHoc Up back again in 2007. And as I like to say, we've been AdHocing ever since. And I came on in 2015. And, I would say part of my goal of coming on to AdHoc Group Against Crime is to really sort of create two pathways for the organization to function in. Because when I look at the big problems that we solve, or that we attempt to address, I should say, is one around this issue of mass incarceration, and then the other around, of course, violence. And within those, I say that we sort of come around with programs and services that deliver both healing and justice. So when I talk about how we are impacting sort of this big problem around mass incarceration, AdHoc Group Against Crime partners with Kansas City Municipal Court, as well as the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office too. But we, with our partnership with Kansas City Municipal Court, for example, we're able to offer a diversion program. And so those who have drug charges and things like that, they're able to come to us, whether they're on the office, and we also partner with the Office of Probation and Parole, but those individuals are able to come to us instead of serving time in jail for those who are on probation. They come to our office and they do a class. The class that we teach is called Thinking for a Change. And Thinking for a Change is typically categorized as cognitive behavioral intervention. And so we are really about increasing problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills, and social skills. But we do that not only on the outside, we do that with individuals who are currently incarcerated as well. And we partner with an organization called First Call. First Call provides Sober Me program, and then AdHoc provides Thinking for a Change. And those individuals that we serve that are currently incarcerated, we're there Monday through Thursday with them in terms of AdHoc. But those who graduate our program, I'm really proud to say that 90% of them do not recidivate. And so it's been a very, very successful program for those who come to us on the outside, as well as those who graduate the program from the inside too. And so we try to expand those kinds of things to other municipalities throughout the metro when it comes to helping reduce someone's incarceration rate, especially someone who's a first-time offender or something like that. We'd like to be able to say that, hey, let us work with them so that they can think more about the way that they resolve their problems, help them with their critical thinking and social skills, and then give them a plan so that they don't go and fall back into those old habits or those relationships that got them on that path to begin with. I say on the healing side of things, for those impacted by crime and violence, we provide free grief counseling as well. And, we've expanded a lot of what we do in terms of healing for our communities. If there's a violent assault, say, for example, a rolling gun battle, AdHoc Group Against Crime has a program in partnership with the Prosecutor's Office as well as Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, where the program is called Caring for Crime Survivors. And we go out and we do two assessments. One is a needs assessment that assesses the damage that has been done. We provide minor home repair. We have subcontractors that come out and provide minor home repair. And then we also do a trauma assessment. The trauma assessment is really about helping people cope with that very, very tragic and traumatic event, and provide counseling service for those individuals as well. So there's a whole host of other services that we provide, but that's kind of where we've come from and where we are today. I would say that we are still an organization that accepts tips, and so we still get tips on homicides, we still get tips on drug activity, and we turn that information over to law enforcement as well. But we have certainly expanded the type of services that we do as well.
In prepping for our conversation, I love one of the things I think I found on your website talked about how you are the social service emergency room.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love that.
For some, we are indeed the emergency room for social services, and for others, we are the trusted bridge between the community and the criminal justice system.
You talked about the program that you go into prisons and jails, and you work with those who are incarcerated, and your recidivism rate is incredibly low. I got so many questions. What do you attribute that to? How are you able to get in there and really knock at that rate when so many other organizations haven't been able to do that?
Well, I think it's a combination of the partnerships that are involved. When you're dealing with people who have at the core of their, behavior is a drug problem, and you're providing an avenue for them to get treatment for that, that's one part of it. The other part of it is when you're helping people think differently about those decisions and the impact that it has and those consequences, that also matters. But I totally give credit to my staff as well. And I think having a staff that is culturally competent in understanding the various aspects of life in which people have various challenges and various views, I would say my facilitators are the ones that are contributing to the success of the program. One of my facilitators actually spent time in prison, and the other one is actually a pastor and a life coach. And so having those two individuals coming at you with one being able to relate because they've sat where you're sitting, and the other one that is able to sort of challenge your belief systems in some ways, but also sort of lift you up, and are able to identify your assets versus your deficits is extremely important. And so it's really focusing on the positiveness that people have and those good attributes that people have, and helping enhance that and help them see that as well. And I think that's really been the success that we've had in our program.
Well, let's talk about your team. How many folks are involved with AdHoc as part of your staff? And how do you find them? I mean, you're talking about really important skill sets.
Yeah, so we have 7 core staff members that handle a variety of things, from our day-to-day, what I would categorize as our crisis case management services, to someone who a lot of people don't know. A couple of years ago now, Westport Business Association was awarded I guess you'd say an ordinance was passed to allow Westport Business Association to put up metal detectors in the entries into Westport Entertainment District. And AdHoc was asked, as part of that ordinance, it required them to hire an agency to provide civil rights monitoring. Well, civil rights monitoring did not exist when you talk about public accommodations. It only really existed when it came to employment and housing. And so in partnership with Kansas City, Missouri's Human Relations Department, we developed a program that is unique to Kansas City and to the rest of the country. And so we provide a civil rights monitoring program that's been very successful in terms of monitoring the situation and making sure that no one's rights have been violated. And so with that program, I have one program manager. Then we have seasonal employees that are part of that. It's about a dozen employees that created as well. So it created jobs for folks. I have about 8 licensed counselors that provide our grief counseling services that we contract with as well.
Well,
it's a large order. I will say it's a large order for, when we consider the level of crime and violence in our city and the need is so great. We're still able to serve, I think last year in 2019, we served over 1,500 people. And so through the various services that we provide.
Now you're metro-wide as well.
That's correct. That's something that a lot of people don't realize because the majority of our calls for services are in Jackson County and Kansas City, Missouri, but AdHoc actually does serve the Kansas City metropolitan area. We're in Kansas, Wyandotte County, Johnson County. We serve Lee Summit, Independence, Raytown, Grandview, the metro area. In fact, one of the things I will share with you and your viewers that I'm really quite excited about, I can't wait to get started on this. AdHoc for the last 2 years have been working and planning with the University of Kansas Medical Center as well as Kansas University to come up with a program that is really under the umbrella of hospital-based violence intervention. And there's a similar model that operates on the Missouri side, and the agency that does that on the Missouri side is Aim for Peace, which is under the Kansas City Health Department. But when we look at violence as a social determinants of health, we're really looking at how can we as an agency, as well as those, the University of Kansas and the hospital as well, are looking at how can we address some of these social determinants, particularly when it comes to youth who are intentionally injured. And so we have a program called Revive, where we're going to be launching that actually in about, I would say, 11 days. And it's something that we're proud of. Where youth and young adults between the ages of 12 and 24, they receive an intentional injury, meaning like a gunshot wound or stabbing. AdHoc will respond to that hospital. Number one, to help them deal with the trauma associated with that. So we want to connect them with our counseling services. And what we're hoping as part of that is it sort of deals with the anger and reduces the likelihood of retaliation. But there's also a network of youth serving agencies that are ready to receive and or provide services, that are ready to provide services to those individuals. So AdHoc has community resource advocates who, I would say, I think the closest sort of model to what this looks like is community health workers as well. So we'll have our advocates sort of filling that role to step in and connect those families to community resources as well, and other wraparound services, and provide case management for them too.
That is very exciting, and how cool that you're able to do that. We know that, all services and staff, there's money, it costs things. So how does AdHoc get its support financially to be able to do it?
Yeah, so we do receive grants, excuse me. That's that cough I was telling you about. We do receive grants from local foundations, but we are also, we're always accepting donations from individuals and corporate or corporate organizations as well. And so for folks that want to give, they can always go to our website at adhocgroupkc.com and click on the donation page.
I'm getting you all choked up.
Yes. Yeah.
With all the great stuff you're doing. So you're getting grants, you're getting foundation support, you rely on individual support. We've been in this crazy environment of COVID now. How has AdHoc adjusted and responded under this now overbearing health situation that we face?
Yeah, we've been impacted tremendously by that, not only in terms of the service that we provide, but also financially as well. So the services aspect of what we've been able to do, especially like with our counseling services, is utilize telehealth. And so a lot of our counseling, counseling services now handled virtually. And pardon me. Yeah, a lot of editing to do this video. I think, so let me start over. All right.
So COVID's impacting your counseling. Telehealth is kind of, or Zoom, like we're doing, keeping safe distance, that you've been able to do. What other adjustments? You were saying the financial impact.
Yeah, so just to sort of finish the thought around the other adjustments we've had to make. So, normally when there's a homicide or a violent assault, we go out and we canvass those neighborhoods. We let people know about the services that we provide. We meet with families in person. A lot of that has been put on pause because of COVID. And so we require, what we have to do is depend on technology. So those homes that we usually would visit that has been shot up or anything like that, we ask families to take pictures and send them over to us. We do a lot of the assessments and conversations over the phone and do intakes over the phone. We recently, we just opened our office back up last month in June. And so we're now we've sort of resumed doing some of our classes, but they're really small classes when it comes to like our thinking for a change. So they're, one-on-one, a lot of them, or two to one sort of ratio, so that we can maintain social distancing. Because the office space that we have here is still pretty small, but we're able to still keep social distancing in that regard as well. But we're not doing large meetings or bringing large groups of people together. And we're not doing vigils or anything like that either. The financial impact that COVID has had on us is we normally would do our annual birthday celebration for Alvin Brooks. We didn't do that this year. We normally do what's called the Community Guardian Awards, where we lift up partner organizations and individuals that have worked with us over the years. And we had to postpone that too. And that's one of our biggest fundraisers, actually our one and only fundraiser that we have been doing. And so we're actually looking at doing a virtual fundraising event next month. I believe we're going to either do it August the 18th or the 20th. We're looking to book a speaker at this time. And so we're still trying to adjust to that and looking at how can we raise money virtually through Zoom or in Facebook and other things like that too.
Well, as if you didn't have enough challenges with the work you're doing already. Yeah.
Right.
Given you've got all these things that hopefully in a year from now, COVID will be gone. What are you kind of setting out as the priority as you move forward? You've got this great program with KU that's going to launch, and we wish you all kinds of success. And it will be interesting to talk to you months ahead and see how that's going.
Yeah.
But at the meantime, the community is just rocked with horrific, violent crime. Tell us where AdHoc fits in and where you see going.
Well, the last 2 years, we've been doing what's called our job program. And JOB stood for Join Others Building Communities. And it was really about helping those who are reentering society learn a trade, or those who live in at-risk environments learn a trade as well. It is my experience and belief that when you are engaging individuals who live in environments that are plagued by crime and violence, what you'll discover is that there's very little economic opportunities for them. And so we began doing these job programs where we created relationships with local businesses, local subcontractors, and we tailored our program to fit the industry for which we were trying to get people employed through. And so AdHoc provided a career readiness program in addition to bringing in our cognitive behavior intervention too. And so those same two facilitators, I brought those guys in who do the work in the jails, but also brought in a substance abuse counselor. And then I also brought in some of the local opportunity centers who provides budgeting and things like that. And I reached out to local attorneys to help people who had legal issues as well. And then we acquired bus passes to help with transportation issues. So it was a holistic approach to providing employment opportunities to people. In 2021, what I'm hoping to do is to relaunch that program. This year, we certainly couldn't, even if we had the funding, and we didn't have the funding to continue it this year, but if we did, it would probably be put on pause because the number of people that we were bringing together, the average class size was 12 to 15 people, and we just we wouldn't be able to bring those people together currently. And it's not the kind of program that you really want to do virtually, but you can. And so we're still looking at different technology to utilize to, just in case if this carries over to 2021, that we can still offer it virtually as well. But that's another aspect of what AdHoc does that we want to continue to do and expand upon moving forward, which means that we need more local businesses or even national companies to get involved in that process with us.
Is there one story or one individual that comes to your mind when you want to share what AdHoc is about without violating anybody's confidentiality?
Yeah. There's so many. I say there's probably, I think recently, but that's too recent. I don't want to give that example because people would know exactly what that is. There was a homicide that happened a couple of years ago where we were, the prosecutor's office reached out to us to help this family relocate. And we did. We moved the family, but once we moved them, prior to moving them, and the house that they were in, they couldn't stay there anymore. It was just riddled with bullet holes. So when we moved them to a safe location, we met with them several times. We had food delivered to their hotel. We visited the one of the relatives in the hospital. We began to sort of reach out to other organizations to provide financial assistance when it came to the medical bills that they were experiencing because of this traumatic event. Both of the daughters lost their jobs because they were just too distraught and they had to call in work, and the type of jobs that they had did not have, sick leave or anything like that. So them calling in so much, they end up being fired from their jobs. So we end up finding them other employment opportunities as well. It was one of the things that sort of helped me, and this happened, I would say I was probably at AdHoc maybe a year before we got this case. But it's one of those situations where it shows just how nimble AdHoc is able to be when it comes to serving families in need. When it comes to our community relationships and partnerships that we have and our ability to reach out to people. And it also shows that Kansas City is a community that cares, no pun intended, but it is, we hear so many bad things about what happens, but there's so much good as well. And so, we're one of those organizations. In this case that I'm sharing with you and your viewers is one that showed the faith community coming together to help us. It showed other community organizations who had totally different missions, but this particular situation was in line with what they do, and we brought them together. It was an example of local government also coming together, and a large corporation. When I say large corporation, the hotel that we work with, providing us with a discount rate after speaking with the manager and sharing with the manager who we are and what we do. And so our ability to sort of reach out and make those connections and leverage those resources for individuals and families that are impacted by crime and violence is what we do. It's really true to our mission in terms of us being a community resource for those impacted by crime and violence and being able to intervene when needed as well. And so that particular case really involved a mother and a husband who the husband was killed. There was two daughters in the house. One was 23, one was 21. Both of them had children that were toddlers. One had about a 4-year-old. Another one had a 2-year-old and a newborn.
Oh my
and
gosh.
all of them were in this house when this house was riddled with bullets. The mother was in a wheelchair and had a lot of permanent damage from that incident. And she was in ICU nearly the entire time that we worked with that family. We were able to work with them and put them up in a hotel for 30 days, find an organization to help pay for their first month, rent and deposit on a new place to rent. All of that happened in the course of 30 days, or I should say 45 days of us working diligently to help that family and to leverage all those resources necessary to do that. And that's something that you don't see on our website. You don't see that in our brochures, but that's a service that AdHoc provides. We relocated last year 34 families, and we've done a dozen so far this year. And that's through our now we have a program called Caring for Crime Survivors that does that. but it doesn't always help with homicides. And so we have to then lean on, faith community and corporations to donate to AdHoc for what we call our Fresh Start program. And so whenever I go and I speak at different places and people, donate money to AdHoc, that's where it goes. It goes to saving a life in real time as well. So,
well, the work that you all are doing is just amazing, and you bring heart, and the collaborative nature is something I think lots of organizations could cheat, steal, and copy from you, because it seems to be making a difference to, even if it's one life at a time, you are making a difference. And we appreciate your time. It's the AdHoc Group Against Crime here in Kansas City. Check them out. Thank you for listening to KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're produced by Charitable Communications, and we're proudly sponsored by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation. If you'd like to be a guest on KC Cares or Underwriting Opportunities, please visit our website at kccaresonline.org, and you can spread the love, and you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at KC Cares Online. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.